Welcome to another one of our webinars from Just Solutions. Today's topic, as you can see, is 7 ways to improve your business internet uptime. I thought this was pretty appropriate, seeing how between work from home and businesses and our dependency on the internet, it was probably about time that I addressed this issue and gave you ways to improve your internet reliability. A lot of this can be, or some of this can be applied to even for people from working from home. So we'll get started. We're recording the presentation. I'll have room for questions at the end. And as always, you're welcome to email me later and ask me questions specific to your environment. But let's get started. And quick background for some new people on the call is been in the industry over 35 years and kind of grew up with the internet. I mean, in the sense that I was doing networking and learning TCP/IP when it was invented, and then learning dealing with internet and DARPANET when it was very early on. So kind of been through this for a long time. It's kind of probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, because I did actually have an ISP business in the 90s. We were a dial-up internet service provider. So got a lot of familiarity on this topic, and amazed at how much we've evolved and what's changed over the years. So we'll get into that. I'm going to try to answer a bunch of different questions. So these were questions we put out in the email, and we're pretty much going to try to address these. If you want a copy of the presentation, I'll send you the PDF, so don't have to worry about writing everything down and trying to keep up with that. But we're going to answer, talk about connections and connection types. We're going to talk about diversity and reliability and all kinds of things. So we're going to answer quite a bit of questions, and I'm really going to make sure that I don't get too technical. I actually define some things for you because I want you to understand it. So I've got some great analogies for you as well. So we're going to talk about the first, reviewing your current needs and usage, and I want to kind of review that because it's changing constantly. Talk about connectivity and the different options. Talk about disaster and planning for a failure, which is inevitable. So planning for it, and then introducing a term that may be new to you. It's not really new, but I'll introduce and explain it in lay terms so everyone knows what SD-WAN stands for and what it means, and what are the different options there. And I'll explain some other acronyms like BGP and things of that sort. So try to demystify it so you can actually understand it, and kind of make some good business choices and decisions based on that. And then again, question and answers at the end. So internet use is continually grown. I mean, I literally remember in the 90s when I came to customers and we're talking about them getting email. They was, well, why do I want an email address? I don't want, I don't want to be on the internet. Why do I need a website? I mean, literally, when I started this, I actually had to sell people on the concept of getting an email address, and many people were just using AOL, and they thought it more as a social thing and a waste of time. So it took a lot of evolution, but now we're over 93% of adults are on the internet every day. So you think it'd be 100%, but there is people that unfortunately don't have access. But the growth has been substantial. And as of 2021, Pew Research study says over 93% of people are on the internet every day. First thing you should do is run speed test net on your actual internet connection. I recommend this a lot. I always talk about this. It's to make sure you're getting what you're paying for. And if you're not, then find out why your carrier, your ISP isn't providing you with the speed you're paying for. I've had different situations where clients have really not been given what they're expecting. Sometimes we fixed it by a firewall router upgrade, but at least make sure you're getting what you should pay for. And in this case, I'm showing an example of a client that should be getting around 200 meg up and down, and they're pretty darn close. That's actually reasonable to see that plus or minus 10%, because you're actually using it when you're testing it. So it's kind of funny is you're actually using your internet when you're testing it and people are still on it and things of that sort. So that's a reasonable number for someone who's supposed to be getting 200. But if you're supposed to be getting 400 and you're seeing these numbers, then you'd be like, wait a minute, I'm really not getting what I paid for. I want to just go through some of the usage because a lot of people aren't even realizing it, but obviously we do email. Emails become, still to this day is number one use, but now because of pandemic, work from home and connecting over VPNs has skyrocketed. Cloud services have skyrocketed. We've heard, you hear Salesforce, that's a CRM, customer relationship manager. Salesforce has grown and grown. People are doing point of sale and credit card processing over the internet. In fact, many of the credit card companies have eliminated the dial-up phone lines, so you have to do it over the internet. HR payroll, our payroll service that we use, it's all over the internet. ERP, your enterprise resource planning software. Many of our clients, the new software, they're doing it over the internet as a software as a service. So whether you have it in-house or in cloud, you're using internet to do that. If you are doing it in-house, then you have maybe remote offices or home users that need access to it. Of course, banking, one of the early things that we started, but banking is doing it. People doing their banking, insurance, credit cards all over the internet. Many customers are using voice over IP. All the new phone systems are going that way. You're not really going to be able to buy POTS lines anymore. They've been essentially sunsetted by the FCC, AT&T, and all the major carriers. So they won't even sell you new ones as of like August of this year. So they're going away. Supply chain, placing your orders, you're doing them online, sending POs via email, shipping using FedEx, UPS, or any other carrier, e-commerce. I mean, it just goes on. And of course, marketing, social media, news, PR, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, you name it, or your marketing on the internet. So internet usage is not going away anytime soon. It's become pretty vital to a business. I really do class it to being as important as your electricity, as important as your HVAC, as important as your phone service. Now, having internet for your business has become not optional, and when it's out, it's a huge problem. You can do your own calculation for cost of downtime. Someone can come in and pontificate and tell you, hey, this is what it's costing you per minute, per hour for being down. But anyone reasonably can come up with a number. And I just give you a simple example here of just taking how many employees you got, what their average hourly wages. You want to throw in benefits and overhead, go ahead. That will give you a cost per hour when your internet's down, because you really are losing productivity. And then it even compounds itself, because that's just looking at that one number. What else is not happening? Oh, well, you're losing sales. Phones aren't ringing. You can't place orders. You can't process orders. You can't look at your inventory. You can't even look at your system if you're cloud-based. So lost revenue, sales, lost productivity. I just threw out one little number from Gartner Group. They say the average business, again, they had small, medium, large. I picked the low end. This was a small number for a small, medium business. And to me, this is reasonable for per hour for a business. Now, how do you come up with a number like that? Well, what's your revenue per year? Divide it by the number of hours. And you literally can, back into that number as well. So come up with your own number. And then you realize that this is something you really should address. We also have a cost of downtime calculator that complements of data. So you can go to this URL, this link, and you can put in the numbers, and it will help give you an idea of the cost of downtime. And the reason what RTO stands for is recovery time objective. So it helps you figure out, well, if we're down for a day, we're down for a week, what's it costing us? This will help you kind of figure that out. So you can try that link in that web page and kind of come up with your own numbers. Again, I'm not preaching to you about this. You should do the math and really come up with a number and realize what the cost impact is. And so then when we're talking about what to do to fix it, you realize that it's quite the bargain. So let's go to that. Most people, and this is called, this term is called internet maturity model. It just talks about the growth of people's dependency on the internet. We started out with, you had a single circuit, single ISP, and you had no backup connection. Well, people are adding backup ISPs now. They're having other connections. And then they're moving up the line to have, well, when there's a failure, it's a manual switchover. It's a break fix model. You switch over from one carrier to another. When I mean break fix model, think of, well, we're going to use cellular, we're going to use hotspots, MiFi hotspots. That's an example of a manual switchover. You're going to tell your people to, get out their cell phone and make calls, get out their cell phone and connect to the internet because their internet connection is down. And then larger organizations put in backup connections. Then some people said, well, I don't want to just spend money on a backup connection. Why can't we use it all day, all week long, and have both connections running? And then why can't we start looking, as we're moving up the line, why can't we start looking at sending the best traffic and the fastest traffic over the appropriate circuit and things of that sort? So intelligence kind of moves along the line. We'll talk about that. So this was an interesting study, and I like this because this isn't one of those studies that's like some academia. This is a study of a vendor of their client base that does SD-WAN, and they did their own math on the uptime for these different connections. So these are real numbers based on over 1,500 clients around the country that are have all these different services and connection to get what their uptime is. So to give you an idea, fiber is the top of the list, is the most reliable connection. As you go down the line from wireless and cable and T1s and DSL and cellular, you see the reliability drops quite a bit. Well, just look at the combination. 96% uptime is the equivalent of 29 hours of downtime every 30 days. Now, maybe it's after hours, maybe it's during the day. I've had customers that have gone down on a Saturday and it's their busiest day. I've had other customers get told that their internet connection went down and they couldn't process credit cards, and Frontier couldn't get out there for a day or two to fix the line. So this does happen, and it happens pretty regularly for customers. But I like this stats and these numbers because this is real world, not some, oh, fiber's 99.99 uptime compared to everyone else. Well, yeah, it is the better connection, but this is a reality. A backhoe can take out your fiber, your cable, and your DSL and everything all at once. If someone's doing construction and they actually put a backhoe through cable and it cuts all that stuff. So uptime comparison, it's good to know, makes you aware of it. Single connection, well, this is our least cost. Everyone's been doing this. You have no real backup connection. You basically, a lot of people say, well, I'll just use my cellular if it fails over. That's okay. That's a business decision. If that's good enough for you to use cellular's failover, that's fine. But remember, cellular will limit the number of people who can use it. If it's a system-wide outage, then the cellular network gets overloaded as well. Superstorm Sandy is a perfect example. So what's your DR plan for a single connection? Well, power cycle equipment is what you have to do. Make sure it's not on your end. Contact the carrier, use cellular until there's a resolution. That's pretty much all you can do. that's your disaster recovery plan right there for a single connection. I would say you can improve upon this. And we'll talk about options. Backup connection. Well, now you get a second router or firewall, or you have one that can support more than one connection, or two connections, or three or four. You get a second connection from another carrier. 4G can be an option, so you can actually have a wireless adapter connected to your router, so you can fail over to AT&T or Verizon if your spectrum goes down. And your backup is a standby. Maybe your backup connection is DSL. Maybe your backup connection is a second copper connection from Spectrum versus your main connection, which might be, say, fiber. A brand of product that we use, that we like, a solution we recommend for this is Cradlepoint. We're a Cradlepoint partner, and we have that at some gas stations and other businesses that can't afford to be down. You're not going to run your whole business over the Cradlepoint 4G network. You can't run every service, but you can keep processing credit cards in their situation, that type of thing. So what's your DR plan for a backup connection? You switch to backup. It probably is not automatic. There's probably some manual process there, and you're still contacting your primary carrier, and you're using your backup connection until there's a resolution from your primary carrier. There's still involvement here. Now, notice I talk about, in all these cases, I talk about contacting your primary carrier. You would be surprised how many people don't have that information handy. So in your little DR plan, have the phone number, have your account number, have your PIN number, have that information already, so you know who to call, and it's posted clearly on the wall in your computer room. Your office admin has it, but have that information handy so you know how to put in that service request, as soon as you possibly can. We try to collect that information from our customers and put that in our documentation for each client. But that needs to be thought of ahead of time before you actually have the problem, because then people are shaking their head. Well, who do I call? What is our account information? Let me explain SD-WAN as I move up this maturity model. Let me finally define SD-WAN for you. So software defined wide area network. Let's break that up. Software defined means it's not hardware, it's software. It means software is you can go to a website, you can make changes, it's easier. Hardware is more of a physical thing. So software defined means it's more flexible. That's what we're saying here. It's defined by software and it's more flexible. Wide area network, fancy term. All it means is connection beyond your four walls of your business. So once you leave your LAN, which is your local area network inside your building, you're going over a WAN, a wide area network. So if you have 5 buildings, you have 5 LANs, and then you're connecting them via WAN. So that's what the W, wide connection, means. And then transport, you're connecting via transport services like fiber, LTE, broadband, that kind of thing. Well, I wanted to make an analogy and think of transport as where you can walk, you can take a bike, you can take a car, train, or airplane. They're all different modes of transport, and that's what we're talking about. So your internet connection, there's different modes of transport. You can do Wi-Fi, you can be if Mac, they use them microwaves. Actually, they still have microwave out there. A lot of it's gone away. The microwave infrastructure that we had was actually it's still being used as a backup connection for some of the carriers. You have fiber. You have multiple fiber carriers for diversity. So you have more than one fiber carrier. We're not all sharing the same fiber cable, and hopefully they're not all in the same conduit. They're going in different directions down different paths. That's diversification. But I just want to make sure you understand that software-defined WAN says, oh, I'm going to have multiple connections to different transport services for my internet. Lovely. That's all that term means. Active connections is the next in progression from a backup connection. So I had customers saying, well, I was thinking about for a while, and it's like, well, why does a customer want to spend, $60, $100, $200 a month for a cable backup connection from Spectrum and not take advantage of it while they have it. So instead of it just being on standby, we try to go to an active connection. So we can be using both connections at the same time. We can decide what service goes over either connection, and we can load balance, we can move services between them. And then the failover can be more automatic. So now your disaster plan is way easier. It fails over automatically, and now you're notifying your carrier of the down, but you're not losing your connectivity. You're continuing to work. And some services may go down, and I'm going to talk about why some services will go down, and that will kind of hit on the topic of this single IP and what it means to have different connections from different carriers. I'll try to map that out so you understand that. So active is definitely the step past a backup. We've done this at a couple of our customers are car dealerships that didn't want to be down. We made sure they had 2 internet connections up and running all the time. And if one failed, it was transparently switched over between them, and they can continue working even in a failover situation. The connections were fast enough that either connection could handle the workload. Sometimes your switch over is to a slower connection, and then you have to decide what workload that slower connection can handle, and that means turning off some services. So that's why some services may be down unless you manually configure them. Carrier options. Now, when I talk about carrier, I'm talking about your AT&T and your Spectrum and your Charter and your all these other companies out there that are selling internet services, Windstream, you name it. All those carriers can offer backup connections. They also will manage the backup primary. I have one customer that went with this approach, and the problem is when the carrier's down, they can't help you. And you're relying on them to do the switch over and the backup between the services. The one that I can think of that has this set up doesn't really work well. Doesn't work because, I'm sorry, but the carriers just aren't that great. You need redundancy of your carrier. You don't want all your eggs in the carrier basket. So I'm not a big fan of this. You're counting on them to do the failover and the switch over. And the irony is they might tell you their connection's up, but meanwhile, your services aren't working. You're not routing, your DNS isn't working. You can't get where you need to go, but they'll come back and tell you your connection is good. I want a service or monitoring that says, hey, this isn't working. I can't get there. Let me switch carriers. So I'm not a big fan of carrier direct options. I think you're better off being carrier independent. So that's what I think the ultimate is. And that's why you want an SD-WAN product that doesn't depend on a carrier. A carrier provided SD-WAN product it's not really, they're selling it. They're all selling it, but I personally would not go that route. Because when they have an issue, you're good luck getting a hold of them to get you switched over to the backup carrier. Primarily because they have no relationship with the backup carrier that's entered better than you. They're just a client like you are. So who's going to get more response out of Windstream? You calling them or AT&T calling Windstream and saying it's not working? I mean, there's just the interoperability between two carriers, dissimilar carriers, just doesn't make sense. The carrier SD-WAN solutions that are out there. What's a single IP? I really want to explain this. This is kind of a tougher concept for people, but once I get through it, I think we'll get through the verbiage, and I think you'll really understand why this is so important. The first thing is you currently have a connection to the internet and you have a public address. This public IP address is how things find you back to your office. It's your street address, it's your phone number. This is your identification on the internet. Well, if your IP address is static, which it needs to be, then people can find you. If you're dynamic, someone is giving it to you, you're sharing it from a pool of numbers. You're getting assigned a number that may not be the same number tomorrow or next week. It could change. it could change. You reboot your equipment and you might get assigned a new number. The carrier might do an upgrade. They might sign you a new number. So DHCP or dynamic addresses, again, I'm not, trying to make the acronym less confusing for you. It's assigned from a pool. And you can get a reservation. Think of a restaurant. You can walk in and hope that they have a table, and you get whatever table they give you. Maybe you're not getting the windows, the window seat you want. Maybe you're by the bathroom. You don't want that, but that's what dynamic is. You're getting whatever table is available. If you make a reservation and you say, I'd like to be on the patio, I like to be by the window, I want to be away from the kitchen, you can make your reservation, your request, you come in and that's what you get. So you can also do a reservation from a pool with DHCP, and we do a lot of that. Static IP is really the best option, and you get assigned an address. Now, the interesting thing here is the address you're getting and you've been given is from your carrier. So if you build your whole business around and set up everything configured to be based on the IP address that Spectrum gave you, and your Spectrum connection's down, then people that are going to a website or trying to send you email or whatever are trying to go to that address. Your work from home people are trying to find you on the internet. Well, the address is no good. You're no longer accessible. The bridge is out. They can't get you. So now you've got to fail over to the second connection. Well, what address is that? That's a different address because it's a different carrier. So even though it's static, they assigned you a different number. So think about the confusion here. Have you ever been in a big city where there's two addresses for the same building, off of one street, two entrances? They can have an address on Main Street, can have an address on the east side, whatever. They can have two addresses for that same location. Well, that's confusion. Which doorway is someone coming into? Where are you meeting them? So having multiple internet connections creates this new level of complexity of having more than one address. Well, BGP, Border Gateway Protocol, I think we're level 4, but BGP 4 is an answer to that problem. And basically what happens is you identify and you get an assigned autonomous system number. You get assigned a network number. This is kind of confusing, but again, you're getting one unique identifier for your network so different carriers can find you. Well, this is great for big companies, and big companies have been doing this for years. This is how big companies like Google and Microsoft solve the problem. Well, that doesn't work for us little guys. This is expensive process. This is requires pretty expensive routers, and it's very complicated. You got to pay the carriers a lot of money to set this up. This is not something that a small business would do. So this is where SD-WAN comes into play. This is where going to a company that offers you an SD-WAN solution and they give you an IP address, they give you a public IP address, and it is the one that you configure and you identify and everyone comes looking for. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, that IP address can go to either of your internet connections or multiple internet connections. And this is kind of that really cool idea. They really figured out how to solve this and create a better solution by having a single IP for your company that then can go to whatever internet connection you have. Again, eliminating BGP protocol. They do it all. They do that all behind the scenes. You don't have to think about it, worry about it, manage it, any of that stuff. And they've made it really as simple as signing up for a service and deploying it. So now you don't care if you switch carriers. You can switch carriers. You can add carriers. You can have multiple internet connections, but you're not changing your IP address in your address to the rest of the world. You're getting an address that's a public IP address. It's not yours. You don't own it. No one really technically owns them because they're managed by Aaron. But you get assigned a number that basically identifies your address on the internet and hides the connections from your different carriers. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4 multiple carriers all having different addresses they've assigned to you. And if you want to cancel with one and switch to someone else, no big deal. You can change that, but your public address is still the one address that you need for everyone finding you. So here's an example. I tried to make find the simplest diagram I could. Every other diagram, if you Google SD-WAN, you'll see crazy ass diagrams. But I just want to show you have WAN 1, WAN 2, two different internet connections. They go through two different ISPs and they connect back at the end to your destination. So you can go out from your branch and connect back to your office over any internet connection, and all of that becomes hidden, transparent, and seamless when you're setting up a software-defined WAN or SD-WAN, as we call it. So it really is an elegant solution to a very, very technical problem. And again, they're trying to make it simple for small businesses, or any business for that matter, to be able to implement this instead of having to build a very large Cisco router and multiple routers, and having Cisco engineers configure SD-WAN, or not even SD-WAN, but configure BGP protocol running on all your different connections, and broadcasting your routes and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. It just demystifies, simplifies all of it. So I came up with this. I call it Smart QoS. I don't know if it's even a real term, but you heard it from me. QoS is a term that we talk about for quality of service. And I just thought about that. Well, you're talking on a phone, you want good quality. You want to hear the pin drop. You want to not hear garbling. You want good two-way audio. You don't want echo. You don't want gibberish or dropouts or any of that kind of stuff. So, they talk about QoS for phone service. Well, I think QoS can apply to anything. And the quality of service can apply to any service you're having. Maybe your email, your internet connection, not having your internet go down. So I think Smart QoS is what SD-WAN can give you at the high end. So now it knows that you're trying to make a phone call, that's a priority service, or you're trying to connect to your ERP system, that's a priority service. Someone's going to Spotify, not so important. Someone's trying to use YouTube, maybe not so important. So what happens is the software in the SD-WAN router becomes intelligent enough to help you balance the load across your internet and make sure prioritization goes where it needs to go. So a public Wi-Fi doesn't take precedence over your private Wi-Fi. So it becomes also aware of circuits. If one circuit's having trouble, you don't have to manually go in and reconfigure it and tell it to send traffic over here. It says, I'm seeing packet loss on the coax connection. So let me start moving more traffic over to the other connection and seeing if that helps. And if it helps, great, we'll keep that traffic flowing over there. And once it gets better on the cable connection, we can move things back. So it dynamically can move the service between your connections. So again, it's taking all the engineering out of it and making it using an AI engine to help you figure out where can I go for the connection? What service will be best over this connection versus that connection? And it moves it dynamically for you. This is really the utopia of internet connection, is you have multiple connections, and regardless of the status of them, it can flow. The best example of this is CenturyLink, and level 3 had a huge outage. And it affected a lot of the internet. Well, people that have the Smart QoS or this AI-based SD-WAN could reroute around it. Now, the obvious, this may not be obvious, but if the person you're trying to connect to, if you're trying to connect to a vendor and they only have one connection from CenturyLink, then they're off the internet, right? They're off net. They're down. You can't get to them. So, but you can still get to all the cloud services. You can get to your Google. You can get to your Microsoft. You can get to your EOS ERP system. Because companies like Salesforce or the ERP solutions, they have multiple connections. They are running those big routers with GBP4 routing, and they're doing all those kinds of things. So your network connection to them is always up, and that's where they say they have 99.9999. They talk about 5 nines or 6 nines of uptime for getting to that service, that carrier. But if you only have one connection, if you were on CenturyLink or level 3, you're done, because they had an outage. But if you have multiple connections, you can route around that and still get to your service and not be down. You can still get your email. You can still get your your ERP system, any of your cloud services. So this is really kind of the cool thing, is they've built this intelligence into the new SD-WAN. And so no longer you're not configuring in a firewall or router and manually configuring and having to have an engineer change where the services go. The system's dynamically monitoring the circuits and moving and load balancing for you automatically. It's really kind of cool. The company we're using is called Big Leaf. We're using their product, and this is a service. This isn't a set it and forget it. You're not just making a firewall purchase or a router purchase and buying 2 circuits. This is actually a service, because they're actually doing this 24/7, monitoring it for you, and basically doing all this work for you centrally. So here's the list of the 7 things you can do to improve your internet reliability. We've mentioned them all. Now we're going to bring them back together for you in one list. Investigate your options. First thing I brought up was review what your current connection options are. If you can get fiber, get it. If you can get Greenlight, if you can get fiber from Spectrum, you get fiber from anybody. Fiber is what we call an SLA product. A service level agreement is signed. They're giving you typically 4-hour guarantee of getting you back up and running on fiber. There's nothing else that gives you that level of connection. The only other service that had an SLA was T1s and T3s. They're still available, but the price is just not reasonable. So if you move to fiber, any of these other services might go over that transport, but again, it's the only one that's giving you a guarantee. Cable, DSL, satellite, they're introducing new satellite options, wireless. None of those have SLAs. If you go down, if your cable connection goes down from Time Warner, you put a call in, this, good luck if they're going to be out there today. They might say, well, we'll be there tomorrow. They give you a window of opportunity when they'll be out. There's no, even when they call business class just means you pay more. Enterprise, Spectrum Enterprise is their fiber service. That's a completely different division, and they have an SLA contractual obligation to get your connection running within 4 hours. CenturyLink level 3, actually at one point, some of those companies were offering a 2-hour SLA. They can only do that if they actually have and own their own fiber. I've run into situations where people, sign up with Windstream or Frontier, and it's not even their connection. So you got to be careful who the carrier is. Add a second or third connection. You can actually have multiple connections. We just, to help demonstrate this, we're adding 4G LTE. I mean, eventually it'll be 5G, but we're adding that so we can demonstrate our fiber connection, our coax connection, and a 4G backup connection. So all 3 of them can be running at the same time, and the Big Leaf can manage that for us. This option here, the next number 3, is add a connection monitoring or rebooting. We actually supply a lot of our customers it, but we also sell this. It's called a Watt box. It's actually a little box that has outlets on it, but it monitors the internet connections from inside your network. So if it can't get out to Google, if it can't get to Microsoft, it will then, and it tries multiple times, then we can set it to tell it to power cycle the cable modem. Most common problem we see is the cable modem needs to get reset. So again, if you want to try to improve your reliability without having to buy a second connection, the first step is the power cycle your modem. Isn't that the way I always tell you? Well, here, this can be done automatically. So even if you're not in the office, and if the little Watt box is monitoring your internet connection and it can't get somewhere after multiple attempts, it can power cycle that cable modem for you. So that's a really neat little idea. Also, the other thing I run into is power outages. So if you don't have a UPS on your internet connection, that's shame on you. They're not that expensive. And every time I go into a wiring closet, I'm looking to see, are they at least putting a battery unit on the cable modem? Ironically, the battery that's inside the Spectrum modem, or the battery that's inside that SIP modem that Spectrum provides you, causes more harm than good. Why? Because if they have a problem on their end, power cycling their modem doesn't solve the problem. They want you to unplug that battery. So I rather have a UPS on there and unplug that battery. So when I power cycle it, it actually does reset the modem and get its new configuration information. Because it's so interesting how they're always doing their updates at night, and you come in the morning, you have no internet. It's because that's when they're doing their maintenance window on their cable modem. So number 3, adding a little monitoring and rebooting automatically when it doesn't see your internet connection. Our Wattbox is an awesome little solution. Make a DR plan. If you want to have better reliability, have a plan now. Think about it. If you're going to use MiFi, cellular, what is the process? Do people know how to even do tethering and connecting to their cell phone, or using a MiFi as a backup connection? What is your phone number for your carrier? Some people don't know. What is the right number to call at Spectrum? You don't want to call the residential service. You need to get through to the business number. You want to make sure you have your account number, and then they'll say you're not authorized and you're not on the plan. I've got the PIN number. Just tell them who it is. They don't know who you are. They're going to verify it from the PIN. So if the name on the account is Bob Smith, then say, hey, this is Bob Smith calling, and here's my PIN number. You have to work the system to get your, the service you need to put in the claim, put in the ticket, and don't let them tell you, they just tested the modem and everything looks fine on their end. Hogwash. I can't tell you how many times that, that's the first thing they tell Power Cycle and then call us back. Tell them you've already done it. Hopefully you have. Power cycle first. If that doesn't work, call them up and say, we already did that. We already tried that. So make your own little DR plan. It's not a lot of steps, but have it written out so anyone in your office knows what to do in case, and things are labeled and identified, because I can't tell you how many offices I go and people don't even know. Well, I don't know which one the cable modem is. Well, let's label it. I don't know which plug to unplug. Let's label it. Let's get that figured out ahead of time with a little DR plan. And so that little planning makes it so much easier to say what to power cycle. That's why we take pictures of customers' equipment, so we can say and see, hey, that little black thing with the little lights that's sitting over here, that's the one we want you to power cycle. But doing that ahead of time is really a good idea. Add SD-WAN management. Go to a third party, go to an independent from a carrier solution like our Big Leaf. Go to something like that. Obviously, this is when you hear the word management, it means it's a service and it costs money. But the benefit is now they're monitoring it 24/7. They're alerting you. When something happens, and they're balancing your workload automatically for you. They're doing all that auto magic for you. Go to the single IP design. Again, your provider will do that. So whether it's your MSP, whether it's you're using a solution like Big Leaf, that will help you get the single IP, and then you'll get what I call the smart QoS service, where now it's aware of the connection, it's aware of the service you're trying over, and it can balance and load balance and give you a reliable connection. So really, you can get to ultimately 6 nines, 99.99999 is considered the best you can get with anything. And I think that's possibly, I think if you do the math, it might be 8 hours a year of potential outage. And that 8 hours a lot of times is because of maintenance window only, and the only reason you were down was because of a firmware upgrade or something of that sort. But the beauty of a lot of this equipment is the redundancy, that even when you're doing some of this work, you don't have to go down. So there's a whole bunch of things we can do to make it more reliable for you. Here's my list of 7 for you. Thank you for listening to me and going through this. Let's here, how can we help? Here's my sales pitch. Let us come in and do a network assessment. Let us look over what you currently got, review your current bills and options. We can actually through a service that we subscribe to, we can actually search and find out every carrier option that's available for a particular address. And then we can get quotes from them. So you can shop, and we can help our customers save some money and find alternate carriers. When we did one of our customers, a large car dealership in the area, we got 2 separate fiber connections at each location, each one of their stores, because they had too many outages. And so now the automatic failover happens, and they don't go down. Their phones and their internet keeps working. And a lot of their services are cloud-based now. So, they listen to us, and in some ways, it pays for itself every day that they don't have an outage, especially after having a couple very big sales days. Saturday's their biggest day, having no internet or phones, which crippled them. This is a bargain. We'll help you investigate your options from all the carriers. We'll help you with a spreadsheet and cost plan estimates for you, and then we'll help you implement it. So, we're here to help you look at this. I'm happy to review your particular situation for you. And we'll take some question and answers. I'm going to start question and answers now, and here's my contact information. So I'll open up for questions. You could do the chat window or the Q&A. Is SD-WAN secure? Absolutely. The beautiful thing is all this is now fully encrypted now. So yes, you don't have to, until I just read an article on quantum computing, and they said when they finally have these quantum computers running in 10 years, they'll be able to break the current level of encryption. But I'm pretty confident that they're already working on quantum encryption. So right now, nothing can beat and break the encryption. That's why ransomware is making so much money, because you can't beat the encryption. They're encrypting your data, and you got to pay it to get it back because you can't break that encryption. But so yeah, it's the connection secure. It's using the latest and greatest encryption. So it's something that you shouldn't have to be concerned with. Also, the good thing is this is kind of not well known, but SIP traffic would then be encrypted, which SIP traffic is your voice traffic. So having your voice encrypted means people can't intercept that as well. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. People weren't aware that there are some carriers that aren't encrypting your voice traffic. It means calls can be eavesdropped. Next question. How often should you test your network connection? That's a great question. We like to test them quarterly at the minimum. Any DR plan should have some kind of frequency in there. The good news, if you're doing an SD-WAN managed solution, it's actually monitored all the time and they're active. If you are on a backup process, then you should at least test quarterly minimum. Monthly would be a good frequency as well. But that's if you're just using a backup connection. You're going to pay less for a backup connection. And the good news is if you pay for like 4G backup connection, you don't have to pay a lot to have that. You're going to pay for overages on bandwidth, but you can prepay and pay a pretty low amount from Verizon. Verizon's really been kind of smart in getting into this business, and they have plans for businesses for your backup connection. And you can decide on how much bandwidth you want to use, because the testing will cost you. How do you get started with SD-WAN? Good question. I think the best way to start with it is to review your current connection options and review those options. So then, we can help you look at that. Again, I'm not a big fan of the carrier specific. Maybe you start off with in your firewall having two connections, your primary and a backup connection to failover. That's a good start. Or we can come in and do SD-WAN. The good news is we're not talking capital money. You're not buying high expensive routers and things of that sort. There is a router that's involved, but it's provided as part of the service for you. And then you can also look at even what we call high availability, where you can have more than one switch, more than one router. Again, eliminating points of failure. The reason you'd have two routers is so if one fails, you can automatically switch over. So I think the best way to start with SD-WAN is really, if we'll go back to my my slides here, start with the assessment. Let's look at who your carrier is with, what your options are. Let's look at the services you're running. Let's see if you need a single IP service, if you can work that way. What kind of impact will you have if you flip over to a backup? Some customers don't realize that their phone service won't work when they switch over to backup, because their carrier is pointing to their primary IP address. And now that they fail over, they're down. So try to pay attention to things of that sort, and we can kind of review the services and say, okay, well, I don't need to worry about a single IP because I'm going out to my connection, and I can even be dynamic. It doesn't matter. But as soon as you have inbound traffic, as soon as you have people working from home, they're connecting over the VPN to your primary IP address. Well, what's the procedure for them to connect to you to the secondary or backup connection? So that's all how we help you with the plan and devise a plan that works for you. Again, moving to a single IP service is going to eliminate some of those issues. It's going to eliminate the problem with phone service. As we move to these hosted and carrier services in the cloud, you're going to want to have a single IP solution. You're going to want to be able to connect over either carrier at any time. And if one service is not doing well, you want to reroute automatically so you don't lose any internet traffic and your services don't even interrupt. Your connection doesn't even drop. Especially if you're doing this VDI or remote desktop or any of those kinds of cloud services. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. Those are really great questions. So again, if you like to reach out to me, I'm happy to schedule some time to visit you. If you want to do it by phone call, that's fine too, but we can review. I like to get copies of your current internet bills to see what you're paying for. I like to do speed tests to see what you're getting. And then we can kind of map out a plan to put in whether it's a cradle point backup service for cellular or moving up to something like the Big Leaf, which is the AI-based smart QoS service that can handle up to 4 internet connections, which is really kind of a slick approach. So whatever your needs are, I'm happy to discuss them with you. I hope you found this presentation to be informative. Again, I love this topic. Growing up and having an ISP business early in the 90s, I've been watching the evolution of the internet and the dependence on the internet grow over the years. So I know my business is dependent on it, and I'm sure yours is too. So thank you for joining me today. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out to discuss your company's individual needs. Thank you, and have a great rest of the week.